Welcome back. It's time for everyone's favorite sports debate here on Midco SN Head-2-Head, brought to you by Grand Falls Casino and Golf Resort. A quick rundown of the rules. We put two Midco personalities against each other. I ask up to 5 questions. They each have 30 seconds to prove their point. I decide who proved their point best, and I pick a winner. The first person to win 3 debates on the day moves on in our playoff bracket, and today going at it with a season on the line, we have Greg Enkers and Carla Metz. So we did a coin flip and Greg won. He decided to defer. He's going second. So are you guys ready?
Yes.
You bet.
All right, question number 1 for Carla. Which Summit League team has been the most impressive through the first month of this basketball season?
Well, I'm going to go with the obvious picks here, but I will say it is hard to pick between USD and SDSU men's basketball. They're both at 7-2 right now. SDSU just beat Ole Miss earlier this week. They beat Iowa down in the Cayman Islands. USD beat Bowling Green, and they were just 6 points away from beating TCU earlier this season, with Matt Mooning getting 31 points in that game. But I think the thing that gives the edge to South Dakota State, not only have they had great success, but you have to remember this is TJ Otzelberger's second year as a head coach. He took over when Scott Nagy left. He kept the team together, at least somewhat together. They had a very subpar start to their season last year. They still ended up winning the Summit League tournament, and they're still right back in the conversation again. You just got to give him credit in his second year as a head coach.
All right, Greg.
Those teams are good, and those are good examples of impressive wins that they've had, but I think the most impressive team as a whole goes to Mar and Wellseth and the NDSU women right now. They're off to a 5-2 start. This is a team that only won 6 total games last season. They're just 1 off of that mark through their first 7 meetings. And having watched this team up close, they are a completely different ball club from where they were a year ago. They are pushing intensity on the floor when they come up with the ball. Defensively, they've been ball hawking teams a lot more than they were a year ago. So collectively, I think what the NDSU women are doing has been the most impressive start to a Summit League team this season.
But the question was not most improved team, it was the most impressive team. And I do agree NDSU women's basketball is doing great things this season, but I still need to see them in the Summit League.
Are you telling me that improvements can't be impressive? I mean, I'm impressed by the improvements. I think the most impressive wins certainly go to a team like South Dakota State that knocked off an SEC team. No question about that. That's an impressive win. But the most impressive team has been the NDSU women so far.
But Mara Walseth's been there a little bit longer. I mean, she's had to build the team, but been there a little bit longer than TJ.
Are you familiar with where that team? Are you familiar with where the NDSU women's basketball program was when Mara Walseth took over?
Yes, absolutely.
I think TJ Otzelberger was handed a pretty decent situation there in Brookings.
But he had to keep them there.
Yeah.
Well, Martin's had to bring players in.
She picked a winner.
I was convinced by the wins over Iowa and Ole Miss. So, you know what? Maybe NDSU will pick up some big wins. All right, Carla's up 1-0. Question number 2. The South Dakota football team was supposedly one of the last teams in the FCS into the FCS, yet the playoffs, I can't even talk, yet they got a second-round game against the 6th seed. If you made the FCS brackets, what, if anything, would you change in the process, Greg?
Well, if we're talking about USD specifically, I think they're slated exactly where they should be, because there are certainly teams that automatically qualify that are from lesser conferences and have worse resumes than what South Dakota did. So I don't think South Dakota should be paired up against like James Madison, for example, this weekend. Just because they're the last team in doesn't mean they're the worst team to make the field. If you look at the NCAA men's basketball tournament, the last 4 teams in are usually 11, 12 seeds. And so if you look at where USD is right now, facing a 6th seed, that would put them as the 11th seed, which I think is the perfect spot for the Oats to be in.
Okay, Carla?
I disagree. I think the last teams in, just traditional bracket style, should be playing the best teams. Yeah, Nicholls State and USD were the last 2 teams in, but they actually played a pretty good game. But it's only good, I think, for USD, like you said, that they didn't have to travel to James Madison last weekend or this weekend. They lucked out there, but that's only because of regionalization. So I would change maybe how many teams are in the bracket. I would change that they have to play the best teams first. And regionalization, let's be real, the NCAA has enough money to have more diversity in the first rounds of these playoff games. I would like to see more teams play different teams. You know, like the best two regions in the country are in the Northeast and the Missouri Valley, and it just needs to be more diverse in the first couple of weeks.
That's exactly where the FCS committee should be applauded for what they did this year, because there's only one Missouri Valley Football Conference matchup this weekend, and that's SDSU and UNI, and there's one in the Big Sky as well. But outside of that, I think they did a much better job of splitting those teams up this year than they have in years past.
Yeah, and I would agree with that point.
Well, so this is tough, you guys, because I feel like, my alma mater got a pretty good shot in the playoffs.
They definitely got a good draw.
Yeah, they got a good draw.
Yeah.
But if we are talking traditional brackets, I got to go with Carla on this one, because you'd think top team, bottom team.
Yeah.
Again, though, the last team in doesn't mean you're the worst team in the playoff field.
Okay.
Why is that so hard to
But
comprehend?
they're
I'm
at
not
least
sure.
convincing, and then you get the number one spot because you're the most convincing. So
But you'd have to agree, though, the fourth or fifth best team in the Missouri Valley Football Conference is a stronger team than a team that wins like the Pioneer League or the Ohio Valley. So that's why they're not slated as the 16 seed at this point going in, because they are a stronger team than teams that automatically qualify.
there are definitely teams that are on the question mark out there, like Austin Peay, I think should have gotten in. Eastern Washington, I think should have gotten in. But when you're looking at a traditional bracket, I do think the last teams in should get the first team. And in USD, I think they could compete with James Madison. James Madison is a great program, but could they compete? Absolutely.
Oh, they could absolutely compete.
I'm giving this one to Greg.
James Madison
He's
would be
just fighting
furious this
for a
weekend if
point.
they had to play
I feel
South
like
Dakota.
we're just having a
They'd
nice
be furious.
little table talk right here. All right, all tied up, guys. Question number 3. LeBron James got ejected for the first time in his career earlier this week. Thoughts on that ejection?
Okay, the only word I have for this is it's impressive, okay? This is the first time ever in his 15-year NBA career, and this also even includes high school, that he's been ejected in a game. So never before has this happened to LeBron James, and he's a pretty passionate player, so that's kind of surprising. Yes, he yelled at a ref because he thought he should have gotten fouled for when he put up the shot, he should have had a foul. So he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have done that to the ref. So yes, he got ejected. But like I said, it's impressive that this has not happened before, and there's a lot of LeBron haters out there, but I just think it's impressive.
All right, Greg.
I'm on the other side of this one. I'm puzzled why people think that this is such an impressive feat that he's never been ejected from a game in his playing career. It's not that hard to not get ejected from a basketball game. There are literally like about a dozen players every night that can go through an entire basketball game without getting ejected. And the fact that LeBron has always been on pretty good teams says something too. He doesn't have a lot to get fired up about most often because his teams are out in front. So that's my thoughts on LeBron getting ejected for the first time in his NBA career.
But let's look at what he got ejected for. He got ejected for yelling at a ref because he thought he should have gotten a foul call. What player out there doesn't do that? There have been players out there to get ejected, and LeBron has probably been on the safer side because he is LeBron James, so he finally gets ejected. But I will say at the end of the game, he said, you know what, at least we got the win. That was the most important thing. And again, that sets an example. It's about the team as a whole. It's not about LeBron James.
Ooh, you know what? I'm going to have to go with Greg because it's pretty easy to not get ejected from the game. So you know what? Just play the game. Don't get too fired up about the refs. All right, so Greg is leading 2-1. Question number 4, back to the football field. Lane Kiffin has been accused of trolling on Twitter. Do you think it's right for coaches to get involved on social media, or is it dangerous?
I think it's absolutely dangerous. I mean, if I was an athletic director, I would definitely be advising the coaches that work under me to stay away from those types of things. Yet at the same time, it does kind of depend on who you are and what your persona is. And so knowing what we know about Lane Kiffin, it's not surprising that he dips his toes into these dangerous waters. And let's face it, he is the biggest thing to happen to Florida Atlantic University probably ever, so he can get away with a lot more. But overall, I think it's a very dangerous thing, something that I think a lot of coaches do and should stay away from.
All right, Carla.
I love a good meme. I can appreciate the funny, witty humor of people out there that take the time to do this. I actually laughed when I saw Lane Kiffin's tweet about Tennessee. The background of that story is he was actually at Tennessee for 14 months before he went to USC and then to Alabama. So it's trolling him, it's poking fun at that. But he's also a coach that's trying to build his head coaching career at Florida Atlantic. And, you know, here's the question. Can coaches put that stuff out there? Absolutely. I think that they can. I think they can be funny, poking fun at other teams because that's just part of the Twitter culture. But should Lane Kiffin do that when he's trying to get a head coaching job maybe somewhere else? Probably not, because he's known for being a little immature. So can coaches do it? Yes. Does it depend on who you are? Yes.
Well, Carla wins that one. I think childish should have been.
I'm so happy I could lay the groundwork for you to repeat words that I just said.
Oh my goodness, Greg is salty.
I gave the background information though. You just said, you know, there are people in our audience that might not know the background information.
Yeah, thank you. See, you know, Carla's just watching out for everyone. All right, all tied up, you guys. Question number 5. Oh, this is a nice soft question to end this head-to-head. What Christmas tradition do you most look forward to every year?
Okay. Nothing more needs to be said than Christmas movies, right? You've got Home Alone, The Santa Claus, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, The Christmas Story, Polar Express, It's a Wonderful Life, Elf, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. That's one of my favorites. You get Macaulay Culkin in the only movie that he's been successful at in his whole life. You get Tim Allen dressing up in a very successful Christmas series. I would say you get Jim Carrey, Will Ferrell dressing up like an elf, and of course, Cousin Eddie. We watched these movies multiple times over the Christmas. Since we were little, literally, we know the lines to all of these movies, and they never get old, but you can only watch them during the holiday season. So that's my favorite tradition.
Ooh, all right, Greg, top that.
Well, I just have one question. Macaulay Culkin, he wasn't successful in My Girl. He's only got Home Alone. I don't know. Anyway, Christmas tradition. Well, I have to go. Let's see. They say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and meat man. I enjoy the food. I enjoy the treats that we get to indulge ourselves in during the holidays. I enjoy, specifically in my family, we have a certain punch that we make every year that I have had to fight for because literally only a couple people take a cup from it, and it just gets forgotten about. But you have to have it, right? Because it's Christmas, and that's the tradition. And I love the food that comes along with it, and of course being with family too. But food is my answer for tradition.
Okay, Macaulay Culkin. Yes, he's known for that, but more widespread Home Alone, like everybody from 5 years old to 50-year-olds. Okay, and then
But
food.
you said it was the only movie he ever had success in.
Well, okay. Well, then food, okay, that kind of gets blended in with Thanksgiving. I could have said the exact same answer with Thanksgiving. And movies, it kind of puts everybody on the same playing field. Like I said, from 5 years old to even 80 years old, you can all remember and watch these movies together.
You know, Carla wins that one. I'm still full from Thanksgiving, Greg. So, as much as I do love food, I gotta go with the Christmas movies. So, Greg, your season is over. But Carla, you are moving on. Thank you guys for playing. We are down to 7, and next week we will trim it down to even more exciting head-to-head matchups coming up. Well, coming up after the break, the South Dakota men's basketball team takes on the #1 team in the nation tomorrow. We'll preview the matchup between USD and the Duke Blue Devils next on Midco Sports Tonight.